Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guide video, and today guys I want to talk about something a little bit different. You see, recently there's been kind of a trend of people taking some mass conscript or mass infantry armies, and it's mostly because people have kind of worked out the maths behind lasguns and Hammer of the Emperor and all that good stuff, and they're like, well, I want to really try out this madness that is pure infantry. And I think there's obviously been some hype generated when I took my 360 conscripts and the Dallas GT guy took his 300 plus conscripts, and so I've been seeing loads of people popping up with their sort of pure infantry armies, or talking about how can I get a pure infantry army, or what do you think is needed for a pure infantry army, and all this kind of good stuff. But one of the big barriers to getting a pure infantry army like this is quite simply the model count. And so what I want to talk about today, guys, is some ideas and some ways that I have found over the years that can be quite good for getting together an army like this for, well, I wouldn't say affordably, because it's always going to be kind of expensive and there's always potentially it's going to take you a while to paint up a lot of models. But at least some ways that you can get this army together without having to spend literally thousands of dollars or thousands of pounds buying it new, brand new from Games Workshop. So that's what we're going to look at today. I'm going to go through some legitimate places you can save some money, using Games Workshop models, and then also we'll be looking at some third-party alternatives. Now, just to mention third-party alternatives, I know some people will say, well, you can't use those at tournaments. That's not true. You can use third-party models at tournaments. You just won't be able to use them down your local Games Workshop shop, or if you're going and playing at a Games Workshop specific event, something like one of their Warhammer World days. But if you've got no intention of going to Warhammer World and you don't play in your local Games Workshop, then you can use whatever bloody models you want to use. And so I will be covering some third-party alternatives, because once you start looking outside of Games Workshop, you really start getting an idea of how much easier, it's not easy, but how much easier it is to put together a mass infantry army like this. So I'll stop waffling on now. Let's crack on. Let's get straight into some of the options that you can select from when you want to start building your pure infantry army. Now, the first place that we're going to look is in Games Workshop itself. You see, some people will just want to use Games Workshop models and they'll just won't want to think outside of that. And I totally get that. Games Workshop just produce some fantastic models, even some of their older ones. So if you want to collect this army, this sort of pure infantry army, you're going to be looking at like 200 to like 300 infantry. You're going to want, and you want to do it with Games Workshop models, you've got a couple of choices. The first one that I recommend you can check out is the old Catachan models. Now, Games Workshop still sells this kit, and it retails brand new from them for about £21. So straight away, you're saving almost £10 in comparison to buying the Cadian kit. Straight away, you're saving, £14 in comparison to buying the Krieg Guardsman, the Veteran Guardsman. So this is straight up a way of cutting your army costs in by a third. So instead of looking at needing to spend, £900 to get sort of 300 Cadians from brand new from Games Workshop, now you're looking at £600. That's already a pretty big saving. And the old Catachan models, they don't trust the Games Workshop paint job. I have seen some absolutely beautiful Catachan models, and what they serve really good purpose for is like penal legions and prison soldiers and stuff like that. The sort of more ad hoc ragtag sort of look of these guys can lend themselves really nicely to, if you're running a pure infantry army, you can make it a penal legion, which is really, really cool. Now, why is this kit so much cheaper? Well, it isn't a newer kit, and in fact, some of the way that the models go together is a little bit fiddly. You might end up with slight glue hands putting together some of your Catachans, but they do go together very well, and the standard of the Catachan box set is still about equal to some of the third-party ones that we're looking at. One thing you can't take away from Games Workshop is they do make some of the best kits and some of the easiest ones to go together, and even an old one like this still goes together fairly well, but you're just going to have to be aware that it will be a bit trickier than putting together even something like Cadians, okay? The other thing to mention is that it doesn't come with as many weapon options. You don't get any heavy weapons in this box, and the only special weapon you get is a flamer. You do get Voxcasters and stuff, but that's it. So be aware you will have limited options, but that might be absolutely fine. Some of these newer Games Workshop kits, they come with loads and loads of options and you pay lots and lots of money for them, but you don't end up using the majority of those bits. If you're looking to build a pure conscript army, and you want to do it purely from Games Workshop, then the Catachan box set is actually perfect. You're not paying for stuff you don't need. It's 10 blokes, and that's it for about 20 quid, which is not too bad. Also, we can bring the price down a little bit lower as well. You can get these models from third-party retailers. Now, when I've been doing my sort of looking around, I've found that these models you can tend to get another £1 or £2, or maybe if you're really lucky, £3 off. But it's kind of what you're looking at is if you buy them from Games Workshop, you're looking about £21, and if you're buying them from a third-party retailer, you're looking at maybe sort of £18 to £19. Now, that might not seem like much, but when you're buying 30 of these boxes, then that is significant savings. Again, you're shaving off another £100 or so, which is really, really nice. So suddenly you're getting this army together for about £500 rather than £900. So that's half price. That's not too bad at all, and that's all legit Games Workshop. It's all brand new on sprue. Can't turn your nose up at that too much at all. And there are also one or two other options or choices you can get directly from Games Workshop for your conscript army. Now, another good option you've got is the Genestealer Cult Brood Brother box. Now, this is actually a really interesting box set. You can find it brand new from Games Workshop for about £26. But you can get it from third-party retailers for as little as £19, which isn't bad at all. It's about the same price as the Catachan box set. Interestingly, what I found is that third-party retailers offer a greater discount on the Genestealer Cult box than they do on the Catachan one. And I think it's probably because the Catachan one is technically sort of made to order, or not made to order, but ordered directly from Games Workshop. And these ones are actually much more widely available, so they're a bit easier for a third-party retailer to give you a discount. Now, what you get with your Brood Brother box set is essentially a Cadian infantry set, but you don't have the more recent Cadian upgrade sprue in there. Instead, you've got a Brood Brothers upgrade sprue in there instead. Now, the Brood Brother upgrade sprue is essentially head swaps and some interesting iconography that you can put on them, but it's basically a head swap sprue. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, if you're going for a pure conscript style army, you don't really need all those weapon upgrades that you get in the Cadian upgrade sprue. You just want some interesting models for as cheap as possible, right? The other great thing is that you can make the Brood Brother head swaps look relatively non-Genestealer quite easily. I know they've got those ridges going down the forehead, but they do scrape off very, very easily and with minimal sort of residue or obviousness on the model. And so what you then get is, quite simply, a very convincing Savlar Chemdog army, which is a really, really cool regiment, and I think a lot of people would be quite impressed if you had a full Savlar army as well. The other thing to mention about this box set is it doesn't contain 10 models, it contains 12. Which means if you're going for we're looking at a benchmark of about 300 infantry. A decent conscript army is about 300, and a decent pure infantry army is between 200 and 260. So if we say about 300 models is where you want to be aiming for, then because you get 12 models in this box, for every 5 boxes that you buy, you essentially get an infantry squad for free. Another thing to mention is it does come, whilst it doesn't come with like plasma guns and melter guns and sniper rifles, it does come with a heavy weapon team. That's where you're getting those extra 2 models from. And that heavy weapon team can be built just as a couple of kneeling guys with las guns if you're going down the conscript route, or you can build it with a las cannon, or a heavy bolter, or autocannon, missile launcher, whatever you want. Point is it can either be a heavy weapon team, or it can be or just a couple of guys with las guns. One thing to mention as well is that, unlike the Catachan box set, this does come with 2 special weapon options. You get the flamer, and you get the grenade launcher. So, whilst neither one of those options are right now, in the current meta, super good, grenade launchers are absolutely fine if you're trying to look at some Hammer of the Emperor nonsense. I say nonsense, goodness. And also, grenade launchers have been one of those weapon systems that have never been terrible. They've just never been top tier. They've always been okay. So even if you end up wanting to build an army that is memey right now, but future-proofed, having a few grenade launchers in there isn't bad at all. So this box set really is, if you want to get it, if you want to buy brand new and sprue, Games Workshop, this is probably one of the best ones you can get. You can get it for about the same price as the Catachan ones, but you get loads more options. And whilst it's an old sprue relatively, it's much newer than the Catachan one. So those are your sort of 2 best options you can get from Games Workshop. Let's take a look at a couple of other areas as well. So now that we've looked at Games Workshop, let's take a look outside of Games Workshop. One of the first companies that I want to talk about is War Games Atlantic. Now I'm going to make it really clear, this isn't a paid video. I've not been paid by Games Workshop, I've not been paid by War Games Atlantic or any of the other companies that we're going to be looking at today. This is just my research that I've done to find some of the best deals out there for putting together big Guard infantry armies. And War Games Atlantic Cannon Fodder box set is probably one of the best ones, if not the best one out there at the moment. War Games Atlantic sell multiple kits, but recently they came out with their Cannon Fodder one and it's been very, very popular. The models are actually quite detailed. They are meant to be like Penal Legionnaire style, but as you can see, they don't have to be. In fact, they can be painted up in quite just normal Guard-like colours. And in fact, I think that these models look quite a lot like Colonial Marines, but without the body armour, or original Cadian-style models, the old metal Cadians. Very much reminiscent of that. They've got some generic sci-fi futuristic-looking assault rifles. They look a bit like an M16 that's gone and been, futurized and whatnot. They could easily pass as auto guns or las guns. And the great thing about this kit is that it comes with 30 models in it, which is pretty decent. And it comes with loads of special weapons. You get plasma guns in there as well, which is pretty good. And I believe that they're going to be updating the kit soon so that it has melter guns as well. But that could just be an unconfirmed rumour. Point is though, you're getting 30 models in your box set. And that's pretty good. These guys fit in perfectly with other Guard models as well. And the best bit is, they're really affordable. A single box of these guys comes in at about $35 if you're in America, and they add more and more discount the more you buy. So if you buy 3 boxes, it's $95 or £70. If you buy 5 boxes, it's $145 or £105. And if you buy 10 boxes, then it's $265 or £190. Now bear that in mind. If you wanted to get 300 infantry, you'd only need 10 boxes. So you're not looking at £1,000 army now, you're looking at £190. That is actually pretty bloody affordable. If anything, that is more affordable than some elite armies out there. You probably struggle to get a 2,000 point Custodes army for £190. Now, there are other retailers out there that sell War Games Atlantic for a discount, but they don't tend to do the big box bundle discount that War Games Atlantic does. When I've done my research, I've found that just buying direct from War Games Atlantic is the best way to get the best deal, which is nice. It's good that you can just go straight to the source and get the best possible deal. Now, like I said, 10 boxes of these guys is more than enough. If you, hell, you could go for the full 360 conscript armor that I did and get 12 boxes and you're still going to be saving yourself a hell of a lot of money. So straight away, we've gone from, what, £1,000 Games Workshop army down to now £190 brand new on sprue third party army, and that's a pretty bloody good deal. We're going to struggle to beat that, to be honest. However, couple of things to mention. Firstly, as mentioned at the beginning, you won't be able to use these models at a Games Workshop store or tournament, so just be aware of that. And secondly, they don't come with any heavy weapons, so that's just something you're going to have to take into account. So these guys are really, really good for building your conscript style army. But if you want to build a regular infantry style army, then you're going to want to consider either some other source of third party heavy weapons, or you're going to need to kit bash and kit bash strong. So that's just something that you want to take into account. But I can't recommend War Games Atlantic enough, and I've only heard good things about this kit as well. Now, there's a few other War Games Atlantic kits that I want to draw your attention to quickly. The second one that I think is quite a good deal and is very much appropriate for the Imperial Guard is their Legrognard kit. Now, this kit is a really, really nice kit, but you don't get quite a good deal as you do with the Cannon Fodder kit. But this one would be much better served to those people that want to go down a more flamboyant Guard regiment. You don't want to go for realistic like you would have with the Cannon Fodder. You want to go for something like your Vestroyan, your Mordians, hell, even your Krieg as well, all those kind of guys. This kit is kind of suited for them. They're long trenchcoat infantry with big rifles and very much that sort of Napoleon style in space. And the only reason why this kit isn't quite as good as the other Cannon Fodder kit is you only get 24 models in here rather than 30. But you still get those same great deal. So 3 boxes for 70 quid, 5 boxes for 105 quid, and 10 boxes for 190 quid. But you are going to have to get, you know, if you only buy 10 boxes of these guys, if you only buy 10 boxes of them, you are only going to get 240 infantry rather than, you know, rather than 300. So you might need to buy a couple more boxes on top of that. But to mention, these guys do come with special weapons. They do come with a lot more sort of uniform and head variety than the cannon fodder guys. These guys can build 3 or 4, maybe even 5 regiments. And the cannon fodders basically, you know, you can build people in orange jumpsuits, or you can build people in like grey jumpsuits with flat caps. That's kind of it. Other thing to mention is that there are heavy weapon teams. Now, they're not in this kit, but you can buy separate heavy weapon teams from Wargames Atlantic with the Legrognard style. So you can get all of your stuff. If you don't want conscripts, but you want infantry and you want heavy weapons, you can get all of your stuff in one place from Wargames Atlantic, which I think is quite a good benefit to this particular kit. Now, there's 2 more Wargames Atlantic kits that I want to briefly touch upon, and that is in their historical range. You can get French infantry and you can get German infantry. Now, these are not sci-fi models. These are World War I infantry. But the advantage of these guys is that they come in the same number as the cannon fodder. So if you're wanting to go for a Krieg style army, or you're wanting to go for a World War I style guard army, then these models would be perfect for that. You've got a combination. You could even mix the 2 kits together to have a nice variety of uniforms, or one kit could be used to represent conscripts, one kit could be used to represent infantry. There's a lot of variety here, and again, you get that same fantastic discount where you can get 10 boxes for 190 quid, and so you're looking at a really good deal. The disadvantage is you don't get sci-fi weapons. So you're not going to get sci-fi looking rifles. Not the end of the world. I'm sure there's plenty of examples of bolt action rifles being used by the guard and whatnot. But more importantly, you're not going to get access to special weapons or heavy weapons. Now, you can see on the German picture that's cycling through here, and on the French picture as well, there are some kind of special weapons like light machine guns that you get available, which you might be able to turn into some kind of like heavy bolter team, but it's not going to look obvious. And so more than likely those models are just going to get mixed in with the rest of your infantry, and they just look like another kind of man portable weapon, because at the end of the day, in the guard, your heavy weapons tend to be big tripod mounted things, so you kind of need to have that represented. End of the day, these 2 kits would do fantastically for representing a big conscript army. You can imagine this. I mean, if any of you have read the Gaunt's Ghost books, if you've read Straight Silver, you know, there are still examples of Imperial forces out there using low-tech weapons like this, using them en masse or en masse, whatever the saying is. So you can imagine if you really want to do World War I in space, and you want to have people running around with bolt action rifles and bayonet charging down Carnifexes and Necrons and all sorts of crazy stuff, you can do that. And so I don't think there'd be any issue if you just ran all these guys as basically riflemen. I don't think there'd be any problems with that. But it's just to let you know that if you don't like the look of the cannon fodder ones, you want to have a more historical slant, you want to get the best bang for your buck, then the way you can do that with Wargames Atlantic is you can go via these couple of other kits. The German infantry and the French infantry ones. So we're going to move away from Wargames Atlantic now. I think we've fed their ego enough. Well, let's take a look at some other alternative model companies that you can get some fantastic volume discounts for. Now we're going to move back towards a more sci-fi looking infantry, and we're going to be taking a look at the Mantic Games GCPS infantry. Now, Mantic Games do some fantastic models, and I want to say straight off the bat before we get into this kit that they do more than just basic infantry troopers. You can get your heavy weapons, you can get vehicles, you can get transports, you can even get Valkyrie alternatives and Sentinel alternatives from Mantic Games. So not only are these troopers going to be good for if you want a relatively affordable way of putting together a good amount of infantry, sci-fi looking infantry as well, and you want a more professional looking force, not like cannon fodder or you know, Napoleon in space, but more realistic troopers. Not only can you get the troopers, you can get all the support stuff as well if you maybe want to not just do pure infantry. Although, why wouldn't you want to do just pure infantry? I'm joking, of course. But yeah, the Mantic GCPS troops are fantastic. And what you get, if you just want to buy the troopers on their own, is you get a box of them, and it's 20 guys for £22.50. Now, you can get starter sets and stuff with Mantic, and you're looking at, you know, maybe double the amount of infantry, a vehicle or two, and you're looking at maybe about £75 for that. But if you just want the infantry, you're looking at one box of 20 guys for £22.50. Now, you can find these on discount from third-party retailers, such as like Goblin Gaming and stuff like that. And you tend to find that you can get these guys for about £20 instead of the usual £22.50. So you can get a small sort of 10% discount, 15% discount on them. The advantage of this kit is you do get sort of special weapons in there. You don't just have your basic rifleman. You don't get heavy weapons though, so just bear that in mind. But the advantage is that you're looking at like £1 per model. So if you want some quite highly detailed, I'd say more highly detailed than the Wargames Atlantic ones. If you want some highly detailed, very much Halo soldier looking, you know, from the Halo series, Halo Marines, or US Marine Corps from Colonial Marines from Aliens. If you want that style of trooper and you want to pay about £1 per model for it, you can't go too wrong with the GCPS. Now, they do come with the ability to, like I said, have laser rifle, heavy laser rifle, flamers, grenade launchers, pistol weapons, comms, all that kind of good stuff. So you can pretty much build any kind of, you know, infantry squad you want. You just won't be able to have the heavy weapon in there. So it's a pretty good deal. I mean, if we're looking at how many, you know, you'd need to buy sort of almost, you know, if you look at £1 per model, you are going to be spending about £300 on this army. You know, maybe £300 to £400 on this army, depending on if you want any of the heavy weapons or whatnot. But still cheaper than getting it at Games Workshop, and still possible that you could find it for like, you know, less than £1 per model. And when for every sort of pound that you save, you are, you know, it does scale up quite significantly because we're talking such volumes. So you could easily put together, if you're looking at just a regular pure infantry army, using these models, getting a few of the heavy weapon teams as well, you could easily spend about £250 and get yourself 200 to 250 regular infantry. And if you wanted to go all the way up to the 300, 360 conscripts, you'd be spending between £300 and £350. So still, you know, potentially less than way less than a third, or about a third of buying from Games Workshop, and fantastically detailed models, and very much a more modern looking army. You're not just looking at waves of, you know, literal cannon fodder and Napoleonic style troops. You're looking at a very much a modern fighting force. So I just wanted to highlight the Mantic troops because I think they look absolutely fantastic, and they're definitely worth a look if you want that more modern sci-fi horde army. But let's move on to the next company now. Now, the next box set that I want to look at is by Warlord Games, and it's looking at their Bolt Action Soviet Infantry. Now, Bolt Action is an absolutely fantastic game in its own right, and one of the things to mention off the bat here is that you would be getting two armies for the price of one. You'd be getting a Bolt Action army, and you'd be getting a Warhammer army. But they do, if you want to look at like getting as many infantry as possible for a really good price, you want to look at their Soviet winter armies, because the Soviets get a lot of infantry in their starter set. Now, if you buy this kit directly from Warlord, it'll cost you about £116. But the great thing about Bolt Action is it's really widespread, and if you do some hard enough digging, you will find starter sets for ridiculous discounts. I have found one on 5 minutes of Amazon, sort of Google searching on Amazon. I found a starter set which was almost over £40 off, which is mad. Literally like a third off straight off the bat. And in that kit for £74, you get 80 infantry. Now, you also get in the Soviet Winter Starter Army set, you get a T-34, and you get a heavy weapon team as well. You get a heavy machine gun. Now, the T-34 is not big enough to be a Lehman Russ. Don't think you're getting a free Lehman Russ in there. It's not. Bolt Action tanks are much, much smaller. But you can sell it. You could sell that T-34 for £15. So if you're looking at a, let's say 75 quid starter set, and then you sell the tank for £15, you're looking at a 60 quid starter set. That's 60 quid for 80 infantry. You could sell the medium machine gun team you get in there as well. You could sell that for £5 to £10. So you could easily, if you're savvy about this and you sell off bits you don't want, you could easily get this box set for £60, £50 even, potentially, once you've sold off the bits you don't want. And so that's 80 infantry for about £50, which is insanely good deal. Insanely good deal. You will have to search around for those bargains though, and I'd say more than likely you're probably looking at more like £60. But if that's the case, to build an army of these guys, of regular infantry, look at about 240 guys that we discussed, you're looking at needing 3 boxes of that. And now that's £60 for each one of those boxes, so that's 180 quid. This is actually so far the cheapest way to put together your big infantry army. Now you may need more. I think you may need more than that, and you might not be able to get the discounts you're looking for if you're wanting to get some heavy weapon teams and stuff in there as well. But you're looking at, I would say if you wanted to go with a full infantry army on this, full conscript army, you'd need another box on top of that. So you're looking at about £240, £250, which is still, and for that you're going to get 320 infantry, which is absolutely like mad. That's really, really, really good. Like I said, this potentially has it has the option to be like the cheapest way you can build your guard infantry army. But more than likely it's going to be about similar prices to the sort of Wargame Atlantic one. Now, one thing to mention here is that bolt action models are they are kind of the same scale as Games Workshop ones. They are very, very slightly smaller. The weapons are a little thinner, but if you're running so many of them, you genuinely won't notice the difference. They are perfectly okay for running as Imperial Guardsmen. The only thing I would mention about the Soviet kit is it is a bit of a ball ache to put the infantry together. The weapons do not come attached to the hand, so you have to get the rifles lined up and then glue them in. Now, once you've done a few of these, it becomes a very, very quick process, but I would be remiss not to point it out that when you're first getting used to doing this, it can be a little frustrating. So that's just something you want to be aware of. But if you want to get a Valhallan army, and very much a Valhallan army, all the theming, all that good stuff, for a very reasonable price, if you want to get 300 plus infantry, this is the way you want to do it. This is probably one of the best kits, but best deals you can get for your guard infantry. So that's sort of the last. If that's the last box we're going to look at, if you want to build this army, brand new on sprue. But yeah, it's a really, really good deal, and I think overall we've seen some what we've shown with this video so far is that you don't need to buy brand new from Games Workshop. And the moment you start looking outside of that bubble, you are going to save a absolute shed load. And most importantly, the biggest barrier to collecting a pure infantry, outside of obviously like the time, effort and whatnot, which is cost, slips away very, very quickly. And so that's something you're definitely going to want to take into account. Like, you can build a pure infantry guard army if you're willing to go outside of Games Workshop for cheaper than a knight army, a custodies army, even like a marine army. It isn't expensive if you're willing to shop around and try and find those juicy discounts. But there is one final area I want to take a look at when it comes to building a guard army for affordable prices. Now, so far we've been looking at building this army new on sprue, but there's absolutely no obligation for you to do that. In fact, one of the ways that I built my guard army up over the years for an affordable price was by buying secondhand. There's two sources of buying secondhand, but one of the biggest ones is eBay, and then of course you've got people who are selling their armies off for Warhammer Facebook groups and stuff like that. But if you are willing to be patient, and if you're willing to really maybe do a little bit of TLC on the models, or even just get a rattle can and spray over some of them, then eBay can be an absolutely fantastic place to get infantry for cheap. Now, the screenshots I've got up here are from when I literally went on eBay at the beginning, just before I recorded this video, and just typed in Astra Militarum infantry. And straight away, I found infantry squads that were selling for, starting bids of 99p all the way up to, about a tenner with like a day or so left to go. Point is that if you want to get cheap infantry, but you want to get it legit from Games Workshop, and you don't want to spend £500, the best way to do it is eBay. You can, if you're clever and you find someone that's maybe not put the listing with all the right tags and everything, and so it's not going to get found very easily. I have picked up guard bundles of infantry, 20 infantry for $1.99 because no one else bid on it. And if you're willing to hedge your bets and just put a 99p bid or £5 bid on all of them and accept you're going to get some and not going to get others, you will quite surprisingly quickly build up a big infantry army. Right now, buying guard infantry is affordable on eBay because there is this perception that guard is in a bad place. And when armies are in a bad place, people sell them and they just don't really care what price they're going to get for them. Also, guard is a relatively popular faction, so there's always people selling guard models on eBay. Always, always, always. And even if you don't want to get pure infantry, you can go on there and buy a Lehman Russ, and if you buy an older pattern one with maybe a little bit of a rubbish paint scheme, but one that you can easily repair, you could spend as little as £10. I kid you not. I have bought Lehman Russes for £10, base, put a Xandri dust spray on over the top of them, and they look good as new. So it really is a good place to get your armies for cheap is eBay. I would avoid anything that says pro-painted. More often than not, it's not pro-painted, and more often than not, they're charging a premium for it. The crappier the models, the better in some cases, if you want to go for as cheap as possible. What you've got to remember is, if you're buying a bundle of infantry, let's say you're buying a bundle of infantry, and one of those guys is really caked in paint, don't worry about it. You don't even need to strip that model down. Because you're going to have so many infantry, no one's going to be looking at the individual Mr. Potato Face model, which has got 7 layers of paint on it. He's not going to be on the table long enough. He's probably going to get picked up in a massive casualty handful, as in your first turn or two, as you're marching across the board, losing 60 conscripts a turn. That's fine. No one's going to care. And that's one of the best things about buying eBay models. They're so affordable that you just don't really worry about it too much. I mean, it's one of the few places you can get Games Workshop models for £1 a model, or if not a lot cheaper. So I just wanted to mention eBay. Another place, it's a little bit of a sadder situation, but when people get frustrated and sell their guard armies off, you can tend to get a pretty good deal for them, especially if guard isn't doing very well. And likewise, keep an eye on Facebook market groups as well, like marketplaces. You'll tend to find people who are selling their guard army off them. They're a little bit disillusioned with the hobby, and so in general, they're just trying to get rid of the models as cheap as possible. But one man's trash is another man's treasure. But if this is you can get second-hand models for many other games as well. So you could potentially get some second-hand like War Games Atlantic, stuff like that. But it's a lot harder to find. At the end of the day, second-hand Warhammer is pretty easy to come across. And so that's what I thought I'd mention. But we'll leave it there. If you have enjoyed today's video, please consider giving it a like and a subscribe. And if you've really found today's video helpful, then please consider heading on over and becoming a channel member or becoming a Patreon supporter. You can become a channel member by clicking the join button next to the subscribe button on this video. And you can become a Patreon supporter by following the link down the description below. It is thanks to the generous and ongoing support of my channel members and of my patrons that this channel is still going. It's as simple as that. Without them, I would have closed shop long ago. So I want to say a massive thank you to all of my current Patreon supporters and all of my new channel members. You are fantastic people, and I really, genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate all of the support that you've given me over the years. But thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and as always, I'll see you guys next time.